Welcome to episode 12 of the Unexceptional Moms podcast. I'm Erin Lorraine.
And I'm Ellen Stumbo, and today we're going to be talking about how and when to talk to your kids about their disabilities. So joining us today are Tonya and Tara Crystal, and they're my really great friends, so I was excited for them to join us. As we are talking about this, I posted the question on my Facebook page, and Erin, you posted that too. Mm-hmm. And talking to Tara said, well, what about the adults with disabilities perspective? What about how they were told and what they wish had been done different? And that's when I said, okay, Tonya and Tara need to join us because we need their perspective as adults with disabilities to kind of know how to navigate something that for parents feels tricky. So welcome, Tonya and Tara.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as we get started, talking to our kids about disability, both Erin and I, we talk about disability with our kids all the time. So Erin, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, Oksana is one of her fascinations is anything medical. So she's very, very aware of her disability. She has a name for it. I've taught her how to advocate for herself. When children approach us and say, what's wrong with her? Or why is she in a wheelchair? Or why are those on her legs, her orthotics? I will let Oksana tell them. And so we've worked really hard on that. For Oksana, it's not bad. It's not a big deal. It's just who she is. And she's very comfortable with that. So I want her to be able to advocate for herself when I'm not there to do it for her. And so we've started that early.
And she loves doing that.
She loves doing it. I mean, this is, I think the bottom line in all of this is it's going to be different for everyone and every child. This is Oksana. Oksana is all about telling people. Oksana is all about sharing. She does great with it. Anya has no clue what I'm talking about. Absolutely no clue. No understanding of disability or Down syndrome. And when we try to tell her she has Down syndrome, she says, no, I don't. And like you said, Ellen, it's like saying, is your hair orange? No. She just, of course I don't. I don't think she sees that she's different. I mean, maybe she does, but if she does, she sure doesn't care because I think she just sees herself as really spectacular no matter what. And so that's kind of where we are with our kids.
And I think for our family, having Nicole be born, earlier, we always talked about Down syndrome. So it was part of conversation. And when Nicole was little, we would say, do you have Down syndrome? Yes. And it's okay. And she would say those things. Now that she's older, now that she's 9, she is aware that she's different and she doesn't like it. So now when we ask her if she has Down syndrome, she says, no, my sister Willow has it. And Willow is her imaginary sister. So she kind of has transferred that to her because she understands she's different and some things are harder for her and she doesn't want to be different. And quite honestly, we don't really know a lot of adults with Down syndrome or someone like her that she can look up to. But she recognizes other people with Down syndrome. So she's very aware because when we go somewhere, if she does see someone with Down syndrome, she points it out. And her way of expressing it, she says, they look like me. And I'll say, they have Down syndrome like you. And that is a situation where she says, yeah. So she actually picks up on the characteristics. And now with Nina, having CP, cerebral palsy, we talk about it all the time. And part of it is because she brings it up. And she has questions, and she has a lot of ableism experiences already. And when those things come up, I mean, we've had tears, why do people look at me different? Why do they treat me like a baby? Some of those things. And that's where I love referring sometimes to Tonya and Tara. And I get to say, hey, this is going on. And Tonya and Tara have become like Nina's mentors. So sometimes she'll say, and there's been a few times that she has called you after school, I think. And she'll say, can I call them? And then I think it's like, has this ever happened to you?
Yeah.
Which is a big thing for her. So that's us in our family though. And that's not always the case because some parents have never really talked about the disability. So this is where we get to refer to you, Tonya and Tara, about your experiences. Maybe what you wish had, been different. How does your parents talk about it?
Well, the short answer is they didn't, and they still don't. I mean, and let's be clear that when we were born, which we're going to date ourselves, early 80s. So there was not a lot. There was not a lot of people with CP around, and those that did make it out of infancy were institutionalized. Right up until we were born, that was still the common practice, and it was just the attitude of mom and grandma and our aunt, everybody in our family at the time was like, we want to raise them at home, and then we got diagnosed when we were 18 months old, and talked to my aunt recently just by chance, and she said she was talking about how they really didn't know a lot about like our prognosis or how we do, or there was not a lot of examples, not a lot of people to look to. So having said that, it kind of makes sense that it wasn't discussed because they didn't have anybody to refer to say, how do I talk to my child? You know what I mean? There were no other adults with CP because we were kind of the first, not the very first, but we were some of the first that survived out of infancy, that were raised outside of institutions. So they were kind of flying by the seat of their pants, and they did the best that they could. But we didn't have those conversations. The only conversations that I can remember are when sometimes my mom would come to like elementary school, like you guys, I think you guys do that. You come with your girls and you tell the class, this is what, my daughter has. This is how it makes, this is how it makes her body work or her brain work. And it was kind of like that, but that is the only time when mom told other children, that's how I knew how she framed it, but she never told me, that we remember. I'll say, we'll say that we remember. There must have been a conversation at some point, but perhaps it was so early on that we just don't remember. And it was also two of us. So it wasn't like, oh, we're the only one, and like we feel really different. We have a lot of questions. It was like, well, it was always both of us, so it wasn't weird. It was like, oh yeah, well, both of our bodies were, not exactly the same, but we understood we both needed to wear like braces at some point, so we both needed to, do different things. So yeah, but I mean, it was not a conversation ever. It was just kind of like when it was framed for the other kids in class, it was like, Tonya's just like you. She just needs to use a walker.
Okay.
Which is helpful at some level, and then at another level, it's kind of like you're only getting half the picture. If that makes sense. Because,
Yeah, the other thing that I thought about, even as I saw people responding to it, because I think as parents, we tend to do that a lot. My kid is the same, they just do some things different. Because, and I'm going to say, speaking as a able-bodied woman, neurotypical, my experiences are only what I have experienced with the body that I have. So I think it's hard for me to understand the experiences of someone with a disability. So I often wonder if in trying to provide my kids with a positive narrative, it is my narrative, though, coming from someone like me. And it's not a narrative that's coming from someone like them who actually does know what it is like to grow up with a disability or to have a disability. And so as I read, those things, I think we're kind of all in the same boat. And I feel like maybe the piece that sometimes it's really hard for parents to talk about is identity. Because we always talk about, well, my child's disability, it's not their identity. Down syndrome does not identify my child. It's just something that they have. But I think it was actually talking to both of you at some point that you said, but it is part of my identity. And I kind of like that. You can't, I think you said something like, you can't take it away from me, or you can't separate it from who I am. And I feel like that was the first time that I felt like, oh, disability being part of your identity doesn't have to be bad.
Explain that to us, guys.
Explain that to us.
Oh, explain that.
Yeah.
Well, this is the way that we kind of, if we're talking to you, Ellen, we will say it's similar to you being Mexican. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nothing that you have shame around. It's nothing that you have, oh, I'm Mexican. That's terrible. You don't feel bad about it. But you don't think about it every minute of every day, but it does inform your experiences every day, whether you want it to or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you deal with people's prejudice and people's attitudes about, about that. It's similar. It's not the same thing. And I don't want to imply that it's the same. I always say it's as if they share a common side. It's not, they don't completely overlap, but kind of as close as I can come to making it something that maybe able-bodied people can relate to, is to say that you can't separate it. It's going to be there, and so why have so much shame around something that I can't take away? You know what I mean? Like, why not be, I'm not all gung-ho disability pride all the time, but I hate something that is so, like, it's always going to be there.
Right.
That's so damaging. Like, I might as well try to, like,
cut your arm off. What? It's, you're trying to, like, cut off a part of yourself. Like, you cut your arm off or something.
Oh, no, I need to just take this part off to make myself look more, acceptable to the world, which I just made a comment yesterday about how, that I always say, like, oh, if people ask me, if you could get rid of your disability, would you? And I say no, because it would change, everything about how I experience the world. But yesterday I said, sometimes I think I would. I think I would get rid of it, but it wouldn't be for me. I would get rid of it and I would be miserable, but I would get rid of it to make everybody else's life easier.
Interesting.
Which is really, we're going through some personal things, but that's the part of disability that's hard.
Yeah.
It's not having a disability, it's people's, how people treat you.
And we've talked about this before, unfortunately, for our kids and for the two of you, that happened the moment that you were born, that those attitudes, were coming at you. It's the ableism that you had to grow up with. Which makes me think, as parents, to actually talk about disability in a positive way is so important, because if we don't, the world is not doing that.
No.
And if we don't maybe point out that this is part of your identity, and I often say Down syndrome is a part of my daughter that I love.
Yes.
And I wouldn't take it away. And I think about Nina and how she's experienced life. I don't know. I think she would, like you said, it's the way that she experiences the world. Now, like you, she'd be more likely to say, maybe I would, but it's because of other people. It's because she gets left behind. It's because people ask rude questions. It's because people treat her like a baby. It's those things that have nothing to do with her, really. It's about other people and their perceptions of disability.
Right.
So
I think as parents, it's important for us as able-bodied parents to check our own selves on our views of disability before we project those onto our children. So if we did not grow up around people with disability, or we fear disability, or we feel guilt about our child's disability, that's normal and that's okay, but we need to deal with that so that we can give our children a proper perception of their own disability. And Ellen, you talk about the stages, and I think it's important for everyone, but especially if you have a child with a disability, to know kind of what stage you're in and figure out, do you need therapy? What do you need to work through those stages so you can be what you need to be for your child? So can you touch on those stages just a bit, Ellen?
Yep. So there's 5 stages of disability attitudes. And actually, this is when I go to churches, this is what I talk about, because I think it's so important for people in general, but especially us as parents, to understand the 5 stages. So these are stages where you move from ignorance all the way to co-laborers, where you don't just see people as equal, but you actually see them as, in a church setting, you would say it's not someone that you do service for, it's someone, people that you do service with. But even in parenting, they're kind of applicable. And the first one, to go through them, it's ignorance, pity, care, friendship, and co-laboring eventually. And I think as parents, we start in ignorance. Maybe in pity if we were there, but very few of us ever even started care. And I think that the fear that I have for us as parents is if we're at ignorance or pity, is if we never move past that.
Because I think it's important to point out that these are all normal stages. And if that's where someone is, it's an okay place to be. The important thing is that we learn to move past it.
You have to move past it. Absolutely. And like I said, we all start with ignorance, and then we all experience pity. It's part of disability attitudes. And actually, you talk about that, Tonya, as you talked about, race. When you don't know people from other people groups, you do start at ignorance because you don't know.
That's right.
And then maybe you move into pity, like, oh, that's too bad that things are different. And then eventually you move into care, friendship, co-laboring. And it's the same. And you said that, Erin. I think if as a parent, you were stuck, let's say, at pity, and pity says, that's really too bad. I'm really sorry that this happened. Disability is a tragedy. That's pity. And pity is the most common disability attitude. Therefore, it's the most commonly experienced by people with disabilities. And nobody wants to feel that pity. So I think as parents, if you find yourself that you're still in the pity stage, ignorance stage, where you're still, wrestling with those feelings, of course you care and of course you love your child. But if you're there, if you can move past that, it's okay to go and get, like you said, counseling to work through those feelings, because as parents, what we project to our kids is so foundational to how they see themselves. And I don't know, Tony and Tara, if you would agree with that.
100%. Like, is there a higher number than 100%? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, even, we're grown up and it's still like, I think over the last couple of years, I've really grown a lot in my, accepting myself, and I think connecting with, with our community of like other people with CP, other people even with other disabilities. It doesn't have to be CP, but like to, surround yourself. And I think that one of you was saying about with your, with your daughters, if they see somebody else that's like them, then it's like, oh, they're like me, and that's maybe the one place where they're, if you see an example of, somebody like you out in the world, then it is affirming. And it's like that connection is, so powerful. So that I think that's very important to like, I understand, like with us, it just didn't really exist. Like outside of the two of us, there wasn't really other people. So I don't, like I said, it's not like they did a bad job or whatever. There just wasn't that. It didn't exist then. But yeah, even the attitudes about kind of our family is very pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can, you can do kind of like, I don't know if I even like.
It's an overcoming disability now.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Like this is why. Because I use 1 million words and Terry uses 2, and they get exactly as I mean it. But yes, it's an overcoming disability. If you just try harder.
Overcoming disability.
Yeah, then overcome it, and then and if something is hard for you, then you just need to try harder.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point, because that is such a huge narrative that we use all the time, that whole overcoming disability.
Well, it's the American way.
It is.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's people don't think that's a harmful thing. They
don't.
A very positive thing.
Right.
I think, Tonya, you shared a blog post, and I don't know who it was from, but it's a woman with cerebral palsy, and I think the title of it was something like, "You can do anything you set your mind to." And she took a picture, and she's flat on her, like, she's on the floor, flat on her face, and I can't remember. She said, "I set my mind to," maybe it was like,
my mind to walking.
To walk. Yeah, yes. And I fell on my face.
Kathleen Downs at the squeaky wheelchair.
Okay.
That's where that post is, for anybody who wants to find it.
I want to see that.
Yes. Well, actually, I'm writing it down, so I can post it. I can post a link. Yeah, because I think for me as a parent, that was really eye-opening, because
That is eye-opening.
Because I feel like sometimes I even fall into that narrative,
Sure.
Even with my kids, I go like, well, don't you want to be able to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think now I understand when I say that, and Tony and Tara, you've helped me understand this. It's like I'm saying, you're not good enough the way you are. If you changed,
you're not trying hard enough.
You're not trying hard enough to be able-bodied, even though you were not born able-bodied.
That's a good way to putting it. You're not trying hard enough to be able-bodied, and yeah, they're not born, and they're never going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Or neurotypical.
Or what,
right.
If it's an intellectual disability, like, they're not. You know what I mean? Like, we're not. We are different. And I think that's the other piece of it. Like, aside from, you're just like everyone else. You just use a walker. You just use a wheelchair. You just use crutches. The other part of it is to, like, if there could have been a part of it that was like, Tonya is different. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I tell the story of how it's not a topic with our parents. They never talked to us, but one of our little brothers brought it up to me when he was 3, and so there was a big age gap, so I was about 17. I was coming up the stairs with my crutches, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, why don't I have crutches like you?" And I said, "Well, it's because my legs aren't as strong as yours, but that's okay." So then for like weeks, or whenever he would see me come up the stairs, he would look at me and he would say, "Your leg's not as strong as mine, but that's okay." And he would like big grin, nod at me, because that's the way I explained it to him. So then that's what he took from that. It wasn't like, "Oh, oh my gosh, that's really sad that her legs aren't as strong as mine." It's like, no, it's okay. It's just, this is something that I need. And he accepted that. I mean, for people that, I think it's still kind of common to say like, "Oh no, my kid's too young. They wouldn't understand." There's your proof.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's a typical boy, but like,
it's presumed competence.
Absolutely.
Assume that they understand.
Please presume competence. Whether your kid is autistic, whether your kid has Down syndrome, whether your kid has CP or anything else that, is not mentioned, please assume that we understand. Mm-hmm. And we know what you're talking about, at least,
Even if we can't tell you that we understand.
Even if we can't tell you that we get it, assume that we can, and go at it from, if you were 5, or if, what would make sense to you? You know what I mean? Like,
using appropriate language for where children are developmentally.
Right.
I mean, it boils down to that. Tonya, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, or Tara, the presumed competence. One of the moms left a comment, and she said her child is nonverbal, but she has had those conversations with him, and she said, I hope that was, the right thing to do. And that's actually what I responded. And I said, you've probably heard the term always presume competence, but I think that's so important for all of us. And, having a child with an intellectual disability, if I keep the narrative of she just doesn't understand and she doesn't get it, I'm not presuming competence. And there is a degree to which she obviously gets it because she does not want to have Down syndrome right now. So she does understand that there's some differences. So I feel like my role as the mom is to present her disability in a positive way because I do love Down syndrome. You know, I do love that part about her. And it does affect her, I mean, her everything, personality, the way she moves, the way, you know, I mean, it's part of who she is. That's why I always say it's like, I like creamer in my coffee. And I, you know, once you put it, it doesn't stay separated. It just kind of swirls into your whole coffee. And I always think of disability that way. You know, it's just.
Good. Yeah, you can't take it out once it's in there.
No, once it's in there, you can't take it out. You can't separate it. It just kind of wash it, you know, it becomes one with the coffee. Very delicious.
Ellen, I don't know if we said this, but you're making reference to comments. And so I just want to point out that we're talking about, we asked on Facebook
yes,
for parents to let us know how they told their child, if, when, how, about their disability. And I think the responses in themselves show the wide range of things that parents do. And again, every family and every child is going to be different. So one of the comments I got was a woman who said that they have always talked to their son about kind of the, you just walk a little different and that's okay. And that now he is wanting a name for it, which I thought was really interesting. We've just always given a name, but I thought that was interesting that he wants more specific information now. What do you guys think about that?
That's his right to have.
Absolutely, that's his right to be as informed as he can be, and I think that's the way that I would hope. I mean, when you, Erin, are saying that you always have given your children a name for what they have, they should have a name for what, you know what I mean? Like, personally, I feel like, how can you start to, like, accept yourself or learn about yourself or know that this is okay, it's not bad, unless you know, you know what I mean?
You read stories about autistic people who don't know that they were autistic.
Right.
People that label back from them, and they don't, you know, they can't accept themselves because they don't have that information.
You know, they grow up and like, oh no, I'm you know,
quirky.
You're trying hard to fit into this, you know, neurotypical example of everybody else that you are around, and you don't understand that, like, actually, I can't.
It's not fair to ask somebody to fit into that box.
And it's really interesting you bring that up because we spend so much time and energy sending our kids to therapy so they can be quote unquote normal.
Yes.
And
right.
And that's a whole box of worms.
That's a whole box of worms.
That is a box of worms.
Yes.
Physical therapy, you know, occupational therapy, you know, for CP, we see the benefit. However, there are other, you know, other people, other disabilities and you know, neurotypes, I guess, that strongly disagree with being put in therapy to make them seem less disabled.
And to point out, these are now adults who have grown that are looking back at their experiences as children, and they're saying that was not helpful. That was actually harmful.
Yes.
To me.
It's, you know, it's not asking, it's demanding. It doesn't give you a choice. It's demanding that you change an intrinsic part of yourself. You know, like, it's not the exact same thing, but Ellen, you said that you know, sometimes would say to your kids, don't you want to do X, Y, or Z? It's a smaller scale, but it's the same type of thing. Don't you want to be essentially able-bodied? And Mom, what do you, like, I think you told me the story about, like, and then they give you the look.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, you know, and it's just like, you know, you might not have the vocabulary for it, especially in the moment, but it's like, that's such a, you know, and that's not to put you down or put you in your place, but it's like, it's so harmful. It would be like, I always, turn it to something that hopefully more people can relate to. If somebody said, Ellen, don't you want to be American?
Don't you want to be? Yes.
Don't you want to be American? Or like, maybe
White.
don't you want to be white?
Yes.
You can't be, like, I can't.
Yeah, right.
I can't.
Right.
As much as I want, like, and why? Why would you want to strive to be something that you're not? Being Mexican is wonderful. Like, that's part of who you are. Like, why would you want something to be different?
Right. And
And
it is part of who I am. I mean, you can't take the Latina out of my blood, I mean,
Or your accent.
or
and
No.
Aaron.
And that's the other thing that we always kind of tie in there is like, well, what if, like you had to go to like accent therapy, Ellen, and try to
lose your accent and like sound more American, because like that would be very, you'd have a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah. Okay. As you're saying this, as we're talking about this, just right now, I'm thinking, it's really interesting because I do find myself not wanting to have an accent, which is why Aaron is giving me a hard time. And then Tony and Tara, you and I have talked about this. When I get nervous or scared, my accent just like kicks in and it gets really thick, and then that's when I can even hear myself and I go, okay, that is definitely a strong accent. And there's nothing I can do about it. And actually, the more I think about it, it's like the worse it gets. And I wonder how often, though, that has, with disability, like if I say, don't you want to walk up straight? Like, let's say that I said that to my daughter with CP. I feel like that probably just even makes it harder because now she's thinking about it and, muscles kick, tighter and.
Yeah, you're saying that, and I'm saying, I mean, again, I want to be clear, it is not the same thing, but we relate so much, because it's like people don't really realize that, I mean, specifically with CP, things like your emotional state, things like cold, things like, but specifically with you're talking about, like, if you're nervous or if you're stressed out, it makes your accent thicker. If I'm nervous, or if I am sad, or if I'm angry, or, any strong emotion, anything that I'm feeling even if it's excitement, even if I'm really happy, my muscles tense up. And I can't control it. It just happens. And I just kind of have to wait for it to like let go. And then it probably comes back, because if it's not just like a really short-lived strong feeling, then it's like, okay, then it's fine. But like, I'm not in control of it. Like right now, my legs are tense because I'm talking about it, and you can't tell. I'm in my wheelchair, so you can't see it. But like, yeah, it's like it's involuntary, and like and that when people draw attention to it or like seem to criticize it, it makes it harder.
So I want to bring that back to the parents, because that how and when to tell kids about disability. I think we do need to be talking about it throughout. Maybe there's no right or wrong of approaching it. The only thing is, it has to be positive. We don't have to keep talking about the overcoming disability, because they don't have to overcome disability. They have a disability, and that's okay. I think the only thing not to do is, if as a parent you find yourself still in the ignorance or pity stage and you're really struggling with the disability, maybe you're not ready to talk to your child about the disability, and you need to find help, though, so that you can help your child. Because, like, for example, if you think of disability as a bad word, and I hear that sometimes. Some people say, well, I don't want my child to feel they're disabled.
Right.
And there's part of me, so my first reaction is, but my kids are disabled.
Right. That's our reaction. Our first reaction too is like, we are. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I don't want them, and Tonya, you said it perfectly actually before we started recording, you said it's not a dirty word. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's not inherently bad.
Inherently bad.
It's not, it's like people say like, oh no, I don't want to say that. Like that's, I would make comments on like different Facebook threads over the past couple of years. And I would say you would not believe, but I think you both would believe how many people will correct me. You're not disabled. You're enabled. You're not disabled. You're able.
You're differently abled.
Differently able.
You're differently able. Any like condescending, it's, like, oh, it makes it nice. It makes it.
And you're kind of placating, like
You're placating. You're taking that, like, making
that offensive word down
to an acceptable level, or like, oh no, you're not this. It's like, you're not Mexican. You're just tan.
Yeah.
You're not American. She's not.
No, I'm not just tan. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. So I'm glad you point that out, because that's something, when you look at the 5 stages, pity, a lot of pity comes across as niceness.
Oh
yes.
my Lord.
And it comes across as good intentions, trying to be nice to the disabled people, and it still does not communicate niceness.
I think the other way pity comes across is the opposite of when we were discussing therapy. The opposite of what you were saying is, I feel sorry for them, so I don't want to make them do anything hard.
right.
Yes.
That's another aspect of pity.
For sure.
Because there's a fine line there, because the truth is, physical therapy can make our kids stronger and can make our kids have less pain and all these things. So it's just keeping that right attitude about it.
Yeah.
Right?
And
But pity says, would you like to live like that? My kid has to live like that. And so I'm not going to make them do anything hard. And, I've seen it. I've seen it a lot.
We've experienced, I think, both of those ends of the spectrum within our family. From different people. And everybody's doing the best they can with what they know.
Absolutely.
Everybody's
Absolutely.
We're not here to criticize people. We're here to try to help you be able to talk to your kids and have more information,
Now, I would say, again, I don't know a lot of adults with Down syndrome. There's a lady that comes to my Zumba class once in a while, and Nicole has come to Zumba. And it was really sweet to see the adult with Down syndrome look at Nicole, and she said, "You have Down syndrome like me. It means you have an extra chromosome. I'm going to help you." And she stood by her, and they did their Zumba together, which is really sweet. And I'm glad that Nicole has had that positive experience with someone with Down syndrome. But now I think about Nina, right? And of course, how great that she has, both you, Tony, and Tara. But sometimes she'll come home from school and she'll say, "This happened, it makes me sad." And I say, "Oh, let's talk about it." And sometimes she'll say, "Mom, don't take this the wrong way, but I would like to talk to Tonya and Tara because they actually get it." And as much as it stings a little bit, I think, but there's a true validity to what she's saying.
Yes.
Because I don't understand it. And I think she's only 10, and at 10, she can recognize that some things I'm just not going to get.
Well, and don't you think we can relate to that? Like, I parent a child with mental illness. If I have something happen, I'm going to go to another mom of a kid with mental illness. I'm not going to go to the lady down the street who's never experienced a person with mental illness. And it's the same thing Nina's doing.
Right. Which makes sense. So, I mean, as we talk about, talking to our kids about their disability, this kind of brings us into the freebie. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to refer everybody to Tonia's blog, because she wrote what I consider the best story about explaining cerebral palsy ever. And how this came out is that I was going to go and actually talk to Nina's class about her disability. And I was talking to Tonya, and she wrote a story so that I could read it. And I remember telling her, like, you need to publish this, because I have a lot of books about CP and there's nothing like this. And then I thought, I don't know if the difference is that the other books were written by parents,
I wonder,
or by professionals. And then I had a book written by an adult with CP that, I mean, Tonya, you could go back and think about your your experiences as a kid and explain it. So the freebie is actually Tonia's book. So I'm going to link to her blog so that you can get the book. And we talked about, you can easily kind of switch that for other disabilities,
Right.
or specific to your child. So it makes it really easy if you want to do that. But I think what I loved is it was the way I presented it, not just for Nina, but, for everybody. I mean, even for me, to learn about cerebral palsy, the whole concept of it's okay to be different. And I can still be your friend, and we can still do things together. And these are things that are hard for me. And it's acknowledging those. And I think as parents, sometimes we're really afraid to talk about our child's limitations,
Right.
or the things that they struggle with. But it's okay to talk about those. If we don't want to, because we don't want them to feel bad, I feel like that can communicate that then it's really bad.
Mhm.
Shameful.
Oh, that's a good word, shameful. And
Feels shameful.
yes, and we don't want our kids to feel any shame surrounding their disability. So you have some limitations, some things are hard for you. That's okay.
Right.
And we don't always have to compensate and say it, but these are all the things that you're really good at, and try to like put away the hard. It's like you put it in a box, cover it up, and look, this is all the things about you that are wonderful.
This is all the rest of me, but you can't really, again,
Don't look at this over here.
don't look at this over here, but like I'm covering my whole self up anyway, so like what do you want?
What's left?
Yeah, exactly. But like I think one of the things that I specifically, not to toot my own horn, but like with like writing the story was to point out, and I think you have that great interview that you did with Nina.
Yes.
For CP Awareness Month, and she pointed out how things were difficult for her, but that it wasn't necessarily, like it wasn't having CP, it was like she gets left out, and
Right.
we relate to that. We definitely relate to that, and so like I got to write to that and say, it's not that I want to lose my CP and not have it. It's can you help me think of things we can all do together? Can we all do that together? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What can we all, instead of you're all playing on the playground equipment that's in the mulch, and I can't bring my walker in the mulch. I can't run around and play tag. Can we think of a game that we can all play? Like,
her book is phenomenal. I mean, seriously, people, I'm telling you, you need to get it.
It's free. It's an ebook. All you need to do is click a link.
Yes.
You don't have to pay for it.
Yes.
Why? It's information. It's there. That's all.
And so as we talk about how to tell your kids, if you have a child with CP, that's kind of already put together for you. And you can just, adapt to that. But I know that, it was super easy to switch it to Down syndrome and to, to talk about it. And I think about all the other ways now. Mary Evelyn Smith from What Do You Do, Dear? She also wrote a book for her son about his disability.
Yes.
And you do like that a lot. She did a pretty good job, right, Tonia?
What I've seen of it, absolutely.
Yes.
And I think that if that's a thing that you can do, is to, and I think in today's age where it's like you can make ebooks and you can make, Shutterfly books or whatever, if you can and if you want to, this is not that everybody has to, but it's such a powerful tool to be able to see, for her son to be able to see his own face, to be able to see his own body, his own wheelchair. Oh, that's me, at 2 or 3 or 4 years old. And when you are saying, when do I bring it up? As soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
When they're babies, when they're, and so then
keep talking about
it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never weird. If you talk to your baby about it when you're reading them a story, a different story or whatever, and you say, oh yeah, your body works like that, and then you get to practice as a parent. You get to practice in the words, and then you don't have to worry about, oh God, that sounded really, like, I sounded really nervous, or I wonder, I don't know if my baby liked that. Your baby's not going to remember. It's okay. But then maybe by the time they're 2 or 3, you'll have 2 or 3 years of practice.
Well, and Mary Evelyn has mentioned, and her son has spina bifida, so that's why she wanted the wheelchair and she wanted, all those things to be included. And she said it's still one of his favorite books.
For sure.
And he keeps going back to it, and they keep doing that. So I'm gonna link to that post that she had about it, because she kind of has like also a little tutorial, I think, on how you can create one.
If you would want to make something like that for your own child.
I love that.
Right. And Antonia, you included photos in your ebook too.
Yes, I did.
So, I mean, can you imagine if you had the book that you wrote when you were a kid?
That I talked to you when I was writing it for Nina, and I said that's exactly why I wanted to do it for her, because I said, I can't imagine how perhaps, maybe it would have still been difficult, but maybe it would have made it a little bit easier. Specifically in one of my grades in grade school was very, very hard, because it was just, so many like unevolved disability attitudes. And then you're 9, and then you can't tell your teacher, hey, don't treat me like this.
Right.
Teacher. And then it's like all the other kids are learning from that. And it's like, yeah, it's very isolating. But if there had been a book like that, maybe it would have been different framework for everybody to be like, oh, like it's different. It's okay.
And I think for Nina, because there were things that you wrote specifically for Nina, that's what's so powerful, that it is about her. And it is about how her body works, and it is about her emotions that she has. And I mean, I think in general, sometimes we think of emotions as sadness or anger as the bad emotions, the negative emotions. And there's not such a thing as really as a bad emotions, because emotions are feelings are real. And I think it's so important that we acknowledge each one of them, because there's validity to those. So if there's sadness about the disability for our kids, let's talk about it with them. Let's not just try to change it to make them happy. I feel like there's a time and place to say, you can be sad about it.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about it. And then help our kids move from that to them, just, the good things about how loved they are. I think that in that point, it's not saying all the good things about your disability or all the good things that you can do. It's just affirming that we love them. I know this makes you sad, but I love you so much.
And like you say, you love Nicole and you love her Down syndrome. If you could, I don't know how many parents can even come to that point with, like, if it's different disability or whatever, to say, I love you and I love your CP.
I'm not there with mental illness.
Right.
I am not there.
And that's, it's completely, I think it depends on the disability. It depends on the parent. It depends
Sure, it
on
does.
the child, and it depends on how it presents. I will say I have never heard anybody say, like Ellen said, I love my daughter and I love her Down syndrome. I've never heard anybody say, and I love CP. Like, anybody with it. Like, I've never heard that. I sometimes say that it's part of me, and but I don't know. It's really hard, especially when you're surrounded by such a different narrative all the time.
I say all the time on this podcast that the unique thing about my situation is that I chose CP and I chose Down syndrome, right? I mean, that's actually...
And it's quite unheard of, actually.
Well,
I discovered you guys, I was like, what?
Oh, it's much more prevalent than you would believe, but my degree's in special ed, and so that was just always so normal to me. I grew up with a neighbor girl with CP, and I was too young to babysit on my own, but her mom worked nights, so I'd go over there and watch her while her mom slept. So it's just always been a part of my life. The mental illness, whole different story. You want to talk about ignorance, Every stigma out there, I believed it because it's all media told me, it's all the world told me about mental illness. And I'm still struggling through whatever phases there are to deal with mental illness and the impact it's had on our life. So I just think it's so important to say that where you are is okay. And thankfully it's not the 80s anymore, and there are lots of people out there who can speak into your life and help you.
And we are in a unique position as parents where we can find adults with the same disabilities as our children who were, grew up at home. And I think with Tonya and Tara, I'm just thankful the day that Tonya decided to reach out and just leave a comment on my blog and then leave a comment on my Facebook, and we started talking. And of course now we talk every day, and that's what I said today. I have like my best friends in one place today. But, to have people with the same disabilities, adults with the same disabilities as your kids, it's so helpful for you as a parent, because I do ask you guys questions all the time. Like, oh, this is happening. This came up. What do I do? Help me, help my kid. But that's because they know the experience. So
absolutely.
For and
not like, oh, we don't want to, it's not like that. It's, we're out there, and a lot of the time, if, especially if you find one of us that has a blog or that is talking about it publicly, and if you see a blog post that says, yeah, I'm here, if you have any questions, please ask. Not all of us are super open or want that.
Right.
But if you do see a post like that, take us at our word. Like, we want to be there, and it's just us being able to share, our experience with somebody else. And who's going to know better than somebody who's already lived it? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's not to say we know better than you, but like you were saying with you wouldn't go to somebody who didn't have experience with a child with mental illness to talk about your experience. It wouldn't quite make sense.
Right.
So, at least to have that connection is really helpful.
Yep.
We're not, I don't know how to articulate how much I feel that we're not angry. We're not we're not mad at you. We're not out to attack you or make you feel guilty or bad.
All the parents.
The parents. Yeah, we're not, we're on the same side, and we want what's best for your kid as much as you want what's best for your kid. If we are, making a suggestion, it's because we want your child to feel affirmed and to feel, and if it's something that you haven't realized yet, that's okay.
It makes me think that I love special needs parents, and we understand each other so well. But I feel like sometimes if I'm stuck in ignorance in certain areas, I connect with other parents who are stuck in the same stage as I am, and we never get out of that.
Right.
And I feel like that's why it's so important to refer to the experts for the adults with disabilities, because you guys know, because I've asked you, can you go through my blog and point out every ableism that I've written about? And because I want to know. And
we'll do it, right? We're going to say things that don't sound great. And
and that's the thing. It's not a personal thing. It's not a personal attack. It's the world that we live in. So it just, it seeps in. It's not like, oh, you are a horrible human being.
I'm attacking you because you did a horrible thing. I tell people too, even between Tara and I, there have been times recently when Tara's had to come to me and say, when you do X, it really makes me feel misunderstood. And I have to kind of stop myself from but blah blah blah. But it was because I was feeling like this, and I had to make I was like, no, don't you dare text her back until you can say, I'm really sorry. I will never do it again.
Right.
And honestly, that's all we want. When we say this is harmful, if you can pause past all the, which the feelings
we
felt them ourselves. Yep. I'm really sorry. I'll do my best to never do that again.
Yeah. And I like that you're saying that. I think as parents, I mean, the reality is that we're always going to be learning.
Yes.
And thankfully, you know, if our kids see that we love them and appreciate them, then it's going to be okay. You know, like they're going to be able to see that. So, so we're going to wrap up here. So how and when to start? Like start now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Even if your kid is 12,
Even
start
if your
now.
kid is, yes. Even if your kid is 2 or 3, you know, start now. Give them a name for their disability. I love what you said, Tonya, that a disability is not inherently bad. It's part of who they are. It is part of their identity. It doesn't define them, but it is part of their identity. You can't separate from their kids. And to really stress out to our kids, you know, you have a disability. I love you exactly the way that you are. That has to be.
You have a disability and I love you. Not you have a disability, but I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have a disability and I love you. And ultimately, that should be the message.
Yes.
When we talk about the when and the how, you know, it's just as simple. You have cerebral palsy. Your body works different. Your muscles get tight. It's hard for you to find coordination. I love you. I love everything about you. That's it. I mean, that's the message.
Mm-hmm.
So as a reminder, the freebie is Tonia's book, and I'll make sure that it's super clear that you have that. And it's almost Christmas, and Erin and I would love for a present for reviews on iTunes, right?
Absolutely.
Yay!
So leave us a review. We would really appreciate that. And this was a topic that was requested. So we are loving because we're now getting more topics requested. So send us those requests. And Tonya and Tara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I think you're going to bless a lot of parents.
Oh,
through
yes.
this podcast.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.